Good day, MT2. As I have promised, this is the recorded discussion of our circulatory system and the lymphatic system. So for this topic, we will be discussing the circulatory and the lymphatic system. Okay, so in phlebotomy, it is necessary to access a patient's vein to collect blood samples. The circulatory system ensures that the veins are adequately filled with blood and helps in identifying the most suitable vein for venipuncture. The circulatory along with the lymphatic systems are important in phlebotomy because they play a crucial role in the delivery of blood to the site where the phlebotomy procedure is being performed. So these systems ensure that the blood is flowing properly and that the necessary blood components are available for collection. For today's objectives, we have at the end of the discussion, you are expected to distinguish the layers and other structures of the heart and give their function, identify the two main divisions of the vascular system, describe the function of each, and trace the flow of blood throughout the system. And then, of course, the third one is to identify the different types of blood vessels and describe their structures and function of each, describe the vessel structure and functions of the lymphatic system, and lastly, to enumerate the major constituents of blood, describe the function of each of the form elements, and differentiate between serum, plasma, packed red blood cells, and buffy coat. Let us first have an overview of the circulatory system. So the circulatory system is responsible for the delivery of oxygen, nutrients, hormones, and other essential substances to the body's tissues and organs. It also helps in the removal of waste products and carbon dioxide from these organs and tissues. So it helps, aside from that, it helps in the coagulation process. It assists in defending the body against disease and plays a very significant role in body temperature regulation. So to sum it up, this system is essential for the overall health and functioning of the body. Nutrients such as glucose and amino acids obtained from digestion are absorbed into the bloodstream and transported to various tissues and organs in the body. So the circulatory system delivers these nutrients by pumping oxygenated blood, which carries nutrients to all the cells. So gases, mainly oxygen and carbon dioxide, are transported through the circulatory system as well. So oxygen from inhaled air enters the lungs, where it diffuses into the bloodstream, and then the heart pumps oxygenated blood to the body's tissues, supplying them with oxygen. So at the same time, carbon dioxide, which is a waste product of cellular metabolism, is carried by the blood back to the lungs, where it is removed from the body during exhalation. So that is one of the major functions of circulatory system, which is to transport nutrient, gases, and waste products through the body. And then second one is the circulatory system plays an important role in immune response. So it enables the transportation of immune cells, antibodies, and other defense mechanisms throughout the body. So it helps in the immune response of a human. And then third one, it helps in the regulation of body temperature. So it is done by adjusting the blood flow to the skin to maintain a stable internal body temperature regardless of external conditions. And then lastly, the circulatory system aids in the coagulation process. So it plays a very crucial role in this process, primarily through the blood vessels and the blood components, and it has the ability to transport blood, platelets, the clotting factors, and the necessary components that is essential for effective coagulation and subsequent clot dissolution. So the circulatory system has major components. So this lesson will cover the two main components of the circulatory system, which is the cardiovascular system, which is composed of the heart, blood vessels, and of course the blood, and the lymphatic system, which is composed of the lymph vessels, lymph nodes, and the lymph. So this is how we see or how we visualize the heart, our heart. Okay, so the heart is a hollow muscular organ that is considered as the major structure of the circulatory system. So we can see here that it is said that the heart is the pump that forces the blood through the blood vessels. So it is the pump that circulates blood throughout the body. So it is located at the center of the thoracic cavity between the lungs, with the apex, or what we know as the tip, pointing down and to the left of the body. So it is often described as a pump because it plays a vital role in circulating blood throughout the body. So it pumps the blood, okay, uh, going throughout our body, okay, so that the blood will be distributed throughout our body by means of their pumping mechanism, the pumping mechanism of the heart. The heart is a four-chambered hollow muscular organ that is slightly larger than a man's closed fist. So kapag kinlose nyo yung fist nyo, so more or less, your heart, ganun siya kalaki. Okay? The size is slightly larger than a man's closed fist. So it is surrounded by a thin fluid sac called the pericardium, and its walls have three distinct layers, which are the epicardium, which is the thin outer layer. So ito yung pinaka outer layer niya, yung pinakalabas niya. And then in the middle, we have the myocardium. This is the middle muscle layer. And yung pinakababa, pinaka-deeper part is the endocardium, which is a thin inner layer. So we have the layers of the heart, no? So the epicardium is the protective layer that attaches to the pericardium. So as what I have mentioned a while ago, it is the outer layer of the heart, and it covers the heart, acting as its protective layer. And then the next one, this myocardium, is the one that contracts to pump blood into the artery. So this is the middle layer of the heart, and compared to the two layers, it is a thick layer of cardiac muscle. Ito yung myocardium, okay? It is a thick layer of cardiac muscle, and also this is the part wherein the blood is pumped into the arteries because of contraction, okay? And then the last one is the endocardium, which lines the interior chambers and valves, which is ito din yung inner layer that lines the interior chambers and the valves, okay? So the inner layer of the heart that lines the interior chambers and valves. This is the endocardium. Okay. The chambers of the heart. So we have the atria and the ventricles. So the atria is the upper chamber, which is also considered as the receiving chambers, while the ventricles is the lower chambers, which is considered as the pumping or delivering chambers. So the atria are considered the receiving chambers because they receive blood from various parts of the body and allow it to enter the heart. Okay, so in the atria, we have the right and the left atrium. So the right atrium receives the deoxygenated blood from the body through the superior and inferior vena cava. So while the left atrium naman receives the oxygenated blood from the lungs throughout the pulmonary vein. So again, so yung atria natin, no, we have the right and the left atrium. So the right atrium receives the deoxygenated blood, and then the left atrium receives the oxygenated blood. So on the other hand, ventricles are considered the delivering chambers because they pump the blood out of the heart to be delivered to different parts of the body. So ito yung magiging courier natin, or yung parang sa Shopee, no, ito si J&T, okay? Because they pump blood out of the heart to be delivered to different parts of the body. So the right ventricle, yung si ventricles, meron din siyang right and left ventricle. So the right ventricle, it pumps the oxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygenation, while the left ventricle pumps the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. So the atria and the ventricles should work together in a coordinated manner to ensure the proper blood flow throughout the body. So ito yon, no? The chambers of the heart. We have the right and left atrium, and also the right and left ventricle. Okay, so you have to note, class, no, that the walls of the left ventricle are nearly 3 times as thick as those of the right ventricle, owing to the force that is required to pump the blood into the arterial system. Kasi si left ventricle, ang pinaka-function niya is to pump the blood back to the bodily tissues through the aorta, no? Kaya nga, since kailangan niya ng force, okay, that is required to pump the blood into the arterial system, so kailangan it should be nearly 3 times as thick as those of the right ventricle. So there are 2 partitions separating the right and left sides of the heart. The partition that separates the right and the left atria is called the interatrial septum. Okay, and the partition that separates the right and left ventricles is called the interventricular septum. So each cestum or septum consists mostly of the myocardium or the middle layer of the heart. So for the valves, okay, so for the valves we have the AV valves or the atrioventricular valves and the semilunar valves. Okay, so the atrioventricular valves or the AV are the valves that can be seen at the entrance of the ventricle. Okay, so and then si semilunar naman are valves that exit the ventricle. So it is called semilunar because they are shaped like a half moon or crescent shape. Okay, so para siyang half moon. Okay, in which they came up with a name semilunar because semi is the Latin word for half, while lunar is the Latin word for moon. Okay, and by the way, class, no, the left AV valves is also called the mitral valve, while the right AV, okay, so we have 2 parts, no, of the atrioventricular. So we have the left and the right atrioventricular valve. So the left AV is also called mitral valve, while the right AV is also called tricuspid valve. So this is the structure of the heart. So makikita lahat dyan yung mga different parts of the heart, and then each of course has different and unique functions that helps in the proper pumping of the blood throughout the body. Okay, so ito yung kanina yung sinabi ko, no, dun sa valves. Right AV is also called as tricuspid, and then si mitral valve, pwede rin siyang tawagin. Aside from mitral valve, si left AV valve may also be called as bicuspid valve. Okay, for the structures of the heart, ito ulit yung mga valves. Again, the AV valves closes. Okay, so ito yung tandaan natin din, class, no? During the pumping of the blood, the AV valve closes when the ventricles contracts. So kumbaga parang they go hand in hand, okay? So the AV valves again closes when the ventricles contracts, and then the semilunar valves closes when the ventricles naman relaxes. So again, the AV valves closes while the ventricles contract, and then the semilunar valves closes naman din, but when the ventricles are relaxed or when the ventricles relaxes. So again, this is also the part of the structures of the heart wherein eto, makikita na natin yung mga valves. Okay, yung mga valves dito sa left part of the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so what are the main divisions of the vascular system? So the vascular system, it is a system of blood vessels. So pag sinabing vascular system, so system of blood vessels that kasama si heart forms the closed loop through which the body is circulated to all parts of the body. Okay, so the vascular system is very important, especially for us phlebotomists, because we need to access this system. So, ito yung ina-access natin, okay, every time we collect the blood in order for us to obtain the blood specimen to be used for laboratory testing. Okay, so the vascular system, we have the pulmonary circulation. So, it carries blood from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs to remove carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen. So this circulation, this pulmonary circulation, is a system of blood vessels that are responsible for carrying the oxygen depleted. So pag sinabi nating oxygen depleted blood, ito yung deoxygenated blood, oxygen depleted, okay? Okay, or oxygen poor blood or deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs for the exchange of gases. Again, pulmonary circulation is a system of blood vessels that are responsible for carrying oxygen depleted blood from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs for the exchange of gases. So in this process, the carbon dioxide is removed from the blood and oxygen is picked up from the respiratory system. And then the oxygenated blood is then returned to the left atrium of the heart, where it is pumped to the rest of the body through the systemic circulation. So pulmonary circulation is very essential for maintaining the oxygen levels in the body and for the removal of waste gases. And then the second one, we have the systemic circulation. It is also a part of the circulatory system that involves the flow of blood from the heart to the body's tissues and back to the heart. Okay, so una muna siya, flow of blood from the heart to the body's tissues and then goes back to the heart. So it begins when oxygenated blood is pumped out of the left ventricle of the heart through the aorta, which is the body's largest artery. Okay, so this oxygenated blood, which is rich in nutrients, travels through the arteries, the arterioles, the capillaries, where it delivers oxygen and nutrients to cells throughout the body tissue. So, kumbaga, yung oxygenated blood, which are, of course, it is rich in nutrients, will travel. Okay, magta-travel siya through the arteries, the arterioles, and the capillaries, where it delivers the oxygen and nutrients to cells throughout the body tissues. And then this is the structure of the vascular system. Okay, so kapag vascular system, as I have mentioned a while ago, it consists of blood vessels. Okay, so blood vessels are tube-like structures, okay, na capable of expanding and contracting. So ito yung mga type of blood vessels, which are arteries. Ito yung veins, ito din yung capillaries. So ito yung tinutusok natin every time we'll do the venipuncture procedure. For example, the veins. Okay? So, nagko-contract sila, nag-e-expand sila. So, yung veins na tinutusok natin every time we collect the blood specimen from our patient is a type of blood vessels. So, we have this type of blood vessels. No? So, let's begin with arteries. So, arteries are blood vessels that carry the blood away from the heart. So, they have thick walls because the blood that moves through them is under pressure from the contraction of the ventricles. Kaya nga, ito yung may puso, di ba? Meron siyang pressure. So, this pressure creates a pulse that can be felt, distinguishing the arteries from the veins. Kaya, nung nag-discuss ako class about dun sa arterial puncture, di ba? Sabi ko, mag-isa siyang or automatically tataas yung plunger, okay, kapag arterial puncture. Kasi because of the pressure, okay, the pressure that creates a pulse that can be felt, distinguishing the arteries from the veins. Okay, so they carry oxygenated blood away from the heart. Okay, so kinds of arteries, we have the arterioles, which are the smallest branches of arteries that join with the capillaries, and the aorta, which is considered as the largest artery in the body. And then let's proceed to veins. So veins are also blood vessels that return the blood to the heart. Siya naman yung magre-return ng blood to the heart. So going back, si artery siya yung magdadala ng oxygenated blood away from the heart. Okay? And then, while sa veins, will carry the oxygenated blood to the heart. So the walls of the veins are thinner compared to the arteries because the blood is under less pressure versus the arterial blood. So since the walls are thinner, veins may collapse. So they have the tendency to collapse more easily compared to arteries. So blood is kept moving through the veins by skeletal muscle movement. So the valves that prevent the backflow of blood and the pressure changes in the abdominal and the thoracic cavities during breathing. So vein carries blood that is low in oxygen. Kaya nga, carry the oxygenated blood to the heart. Again, the oxygenated blood kasi is the type of blood that is low in oxygen. So, oxygen poor siya. Okay? And high in carbon dioxide from the tissues back to the right atrium of the heart. So, the vein, we have two types of blood. We have the arterial and the venous blood. So, for the arterial blood, the blood is oxygen rich, or what we call as oxygenated. So because it is oxygen rich or full of oxygen, the normal systemic arterial blood is colored bright red. While for the venous blood, we have it is oxygen poor, or the oxygenated, so it is much darker and more bluish red than the normal arterial blood. So dark red si venous blood kasi it is deoxygenated, and then arterial, since it is an oxygenated blood, kaya kulay bright red siya. So oxygenated blood refers to a blood that has been oxygenated in the lungs. So while the oxygenated blood refers to the blood that has been depleted of oxygen and is returning back to the heart or lungs to be reoxygenated. So, yung difference between these two, eto siya, okay? Pwede siya doon sa based on its oxygen content. So, as I have mentioned, oxygenated blood contains a high level of oxygen, while the oxygenated blood has a low level of oxygen. And then by its color naman, it can be distinguished pa rin, okay? So, oxygenated blood appears bright red due to the binding of oxygen to hemoglobin molecules in red blood cells. So, while the oxygenated blood appears darker, usually a shade of deep red or burgundy or dark red. And then also, based on its location, oxygenated blood is commonly found in the arteries, okay, which carry blood away from the heart and towards the body organs and tissues, while the oxygenated blood is typically found in the veins, which carry the blood back to the heart. Okay, next one, we have the types of blood vessel, which is a capillary. So in the systemic circulation, the arterial blood delivers oxygen and nutrients naman to the capillary. So the thin capillary walls allow the exchange of oxygen for carbon dioxide and nutrients for waste between the cells and the blood. The carbon dioxide and the waste are carried away in the venous blood. So in the pulmonary circulation, carbon dioxide is delivered to the capillaries in the lungs and exchanged for oxygen. So yung capillaries natin, these are microscopic one-cell thick vessels and connect to the arterioles and venules, which forms a bridge between the arterial and venous circulation. Okay, this is the structures of the blood vessels. So we have the three layers of arteries and veins. So arteries and veins are composed of the three main layers, which we have the tunica adventitia or the tunica externa, the tunica media, and the tunica intima or the tunica interna. So let's remember here, class, that the tunica media is much thicker in arteries than in veins. Much thicker siya sa arteries versus sa veins, yung tunica media. So what are the major constituents of blood and blood specimen? So again, si blood muna, okay, is a mixture of fluid and cells. 55% for plasma, 45% for the formed elements. And then ano yung pH ni blood? We have the 7.4 pH, which is slightly alkaline, and the blood volume is 5 liters. So in the living body, the fluid portion of the blood is called plasma. Okay, and then the cellular portion is referred to as the formed elements. So the average adult that, for example, no, the average adult weighing 70 kilograms. So 70 kilograms is approximately 154 pounds, has a blood volume of about 5 liters, or if we will convert it to quarts, 5.3 quarts. Okay, so of which it is approximately 55% plasma and 45% formed elements. So ano itong mga formed elements? Formed elements examples are the erythrocytes, leukocytes, thrombocytes. Okay, or in other words, erythrocytes, these are the red blood cells. Si leukocytes are the white blood cells or the WBC, and the thrombocytes are the platelets. So accordingly, approximately 1/2 of a blood specimen, okay, again, 1/2 of a blood specimen, okay, approximately 1/2 of a blood specimen will be serum or plasma, and the other half will be blood cells. So kapag nakakuha ka ng blood specimen, nasa test tube, so approximately 1/2 of that specimen will composed of the serum or plasma, and the other half will be the blood cells. Okay. So ito, blood components daw, plasma. So plasma is a clear, pale yellow fluid that is nearly 90% water and 10% solutes. So, dun sa solutes naman, it is composed of gases, the minerals, the nutrients, proteins, waste products, and other substances. So, class, alam nyo na, no? Si plasma by the serum is the specimen that we can get from anti-coagulated blood. Okay? So, merong part yan, no, which is plasma is composed of the 55% of the total blood specimen. And then, dun sa gitna niya, we have the buffy coat, which is composed of the leukocytes or WBCs and platelets. Okay, so this is less than 1% of the total blood. And then the rest, yung pinakababa niya, are the erythrocytes or the red blood cells, which is 45% of the total blood. And then class, ito naman si plasma, 'di ba? Balikan natin, no? Just to have a review on the difference between plasma and serum. So, serum is the liquid component of blood that remains after blood coagulation. So, nag-clot yung blood. Okay, pag nag-clot yung blood, yung ma-obtain natin na specimen will be serum, while an unclotted blood, makukuha natin will be plasma. Okay, do not forget that one. And then, the formed elements. So, the formed elements in the blood may include the following: the erythrocytes or the RBCs or the red blood cells, the leukocytes or the WBCs or white blood cells, and the thrombocytes or the platelets. Okay? So, kung makikita ninyo, merong buffy coat. So, ano si buffy coat? So, buffy coat are rich in WBC or the leukocytes and platelets, which is isolated from plasma and RBC after centrifugation. So, after natin na centrifuge yung blood sample, ma-obtain natin itong 3 layers na to. The first layer, upper layer, we have the plasma. The middle layer, coating layer, in between will be the buffy coat. And the last layer or the layer dito sa pinakababa, okay, will be the erythrocytes. So let's proceed with erythrocytes or the red blood cells or the RBC. So these are the most numerous cells in the blood. Okay, these are also the most common type of cell that is found in blood and described as nuclear biconcave disc. So under the microscope class, ganyan halos yung makikita ninyo. So, usually sinasabi namin, no, since they are biconcave discs, they look like donuts. So they are donut shaped. Ganun ang itsura niya under the microscope. Okay? So they are formed with a nucleus, kaya nga nuclear siya, which they lose as they mature and enter the bloodstream. So the primary function is to transport oxygen from the lung to body tissues and carbon dioxide from tissues to the lungs. So yung lifespan niya is 120 days. So the main component of the RBCs is hemoglobin, which is an iron-containing pigment that enables them to transport the oxygen and carbon dioxide and also gives them their red color. So the hemoglobin is responsible for the red color of blood. Okay, so next one will be the leukocytes or the white blood cells or the WBC. So leukocytes are also known as white blood cells, which are a vital component of the immune system. So they play a crucial role in defending the body against pathogens such as the bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. And then also they primarily function by neutralizing or destroying these pathogens through various mechanisms such as, for example, phagocytosis. Okay? So some types of leukocytes such as the neutrophils, the monocytes, and certain types of cells are capable of engulfing, okay, so kakainin niya, okay, capable of engulfing and digesting the pathogens through a process called phagocytosis, okay. And then another mechanism is antibody production. So another crucial function of leukocytes, particularly the lymphocytes, which is a type of white blood cell, is to produce antibodies. So antibodies, these are proteins that specifically recognize and bind to foreign antigens. Antigens may be in the form of a protein or other molecules on the surface of pathogens, which marks them for destruction by other immune cells or neutralizing their harmful effects. So the B lymphocytes, which is a type of lymphocyte, are primarily responsible for producing antibodies. So antibody production, which it is a crucial function of leukocytes. What particular type of leukocyte? We have the lymphocytes, okay? And then under lymphocytes, the B lymphocytes are primarily responsible for the production of antibodies. And then lastly, the releasing of substances that attack foreign matter. So again, the leukocytes, particularly naman on this part, no, dun sa substances or release of substances that attack foreign matter. Okay? The eosinophils and the basophils release various substances that can attack and destroy the pathogens or modulate the immune response. So for example, eosinophils will release toxic granules that are effective against parasites. So kumbaga, kapag na-detect na ni body na meron siyang meron parasites yung katawan, no? So the eosinophils will release toxic granules that will be effective against parasites. Then another example, si basophils naman, okay? It will release histamine. Okay, the basophils will release histamine and other inflammatory mediators that help initiate and regulate immune responses. And then next one, we have the granulocytes. Okay, so the granulocytes, under granulocytes, we have the neutrophil, the eosinophil, and the basophil. So in the neutrophils, they are the most numerous type of WBC in adults. So anong function ni neutrophil? So they kill and digest the bacteria and fungi. So siya yung nagkikill and nagdadigest ng bacteria and fungi. So they are the most numerous type of white blood cell and your first line of defense when an infection strikes. And then under the microscope, the neutrophil has a nucleus that has several lobes or segments, as you can see on the slide. Okay, and then next one we have the eosinophils. So they attack, ano naman ang purpose ng eosinophil? They attack and kill parasites and cancer cells and also help with allergic responses. So kung may allergy ka, okay, si eosinophils yung gagawa ng paraan in order for you to help them, in order for them to help you with your allergic responses. Okay, so under the microscope, an eosinophil has a nucleus that has two lobes, pero dun sa background niya, meron siyang bead-like granules that stain bright orange or red. Kulay bright red, bright orange red yung granules niya sa background. Okay? And then next one, we have the basophils. So least numerous. So konti lang siya. Okay? Konti lang siya because it has the least it is the least numerous type of WBC. So these basophils secrete chemicals such as, ano yung sinisecrete ni basophils? Histamine, which is a marker of allergic disease that help control the body's immune response. So under the microscope, ganyan yung itsura niya. Okay, so it has large dark blue-black staining granules that often obscure the nucleus. So nakikita nyo yung difference, no? Kasi sa hematology, you will be looking and under the microscope, you will look under the microscope and you will identify alin doon si neutrophils, alin doon si eosinophils, basophils, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are the granulocytes, neutrophils, the eosinophils, and basophils. Okay, why granulocytes? Kasi they have granules. Okay, and then the next one naman under sa granulocytes, ibig sabihin without granules. Okay, we have the lymphocyte and the monocyte. Okay, for the lymphocytes, the second most numerous WBC in adult. The first na pinaka-numerous, balikan natin, is the neutrophils. And then the second are the lymphocytes. Yan. Okay? Lymphocytes. Okay, so balikan ulit natin. The most numerous type is the neutrophil. And then the second most numerous type is the WBC. Okay, so lymphocytes, they and monocytes are considered as granulocytes without granules. Okay, so lymphocytes, ano yung function niya? They create antibodies. So, pag sinabing antibodies, lymphocyte na agad yung isipin natin. Okay, so these antibodies fight against bacteria, viruses, and pathogens, lahat ng pathogens, and other potentially harmful invaders. So yung lymphocyte, we have the T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes. And then lastly, we have the largest WBC, which is the monocyte and the precursor of tissue macrophage. So they have the monocytes has longer lifespan than other white blood cells and helps to break down bacteria by the macrophages. Okay, so ang itsura niya under the microscope will look like a kidney bean shape yung monocyte. And then next one, we have the thrombocytes or the platelets. These are the smallest of the formed elements. And pag sinabing thrombocytes, ang papasok agad sa isip natin, which are coagulation. Okay, so thrombocytes are very essential to coagulation and are always present when an injury occurs. So coagulation, ano yung coagulation ba? Involves the formation of a blood clot, which prevents further blood loss from a wound. Kumbaga, yung thrombocytes will form the clots, okay, and stop or prevent bleeding. Kaya nga usually, kunwari may dengue ka, di ba? Sabi ni, usually kapag bumababa yung platelets, which is a manifestation of dengue, nagkakaroon ng bleeding. Okay? Kasi bababa yung platelets niya. Okay? And the lifespan of these platelets are only 8 to 10 days. So ito, ganyan yung itsura niya under the microscope. Ito yung mga maliliit na to. The smallest of the four elements, yung mga nakikita yung nakakalat na maliliit dyan. Okay? And then we have the blood specimen. The whole blood is in the same form as it is in the bloodstream. Kung ano yung nasa bloodstream nyo, yun ang tawag ay whole blood. Okay? And dapat, class, the whole bloods should not be allowed to clot or separate. And then the serum, again, so magsasawa kayo sa term na serum and plasma, lalo na when you go to clinical chemistry and blood banking. Okay, so serum blood, so you have serum and plasma, so you have to know, no, talaga the difference. So again, the liquid portion of clotted blood is called the serum. It is composed of, same as plasma, but it does not contain fibrinogen. Okay. Next one, we have the plasma, of course, the liquid portion of unclotted blood. So ito siya. Okay. So, with anticoagulant, okay, yung whole blood should, dapat, hindi siya, it must not be allowed to clot or separate. Okay? And then, with an anticoagulant, yung tube, for example, okay, so mapoproduce natin is plasma. Okay? And then, gitna niya will be the buffy coat, sa baba niya will be our RBC. And without anticoagulant, we will be producing a serum. Okay? And yung sa babang portion niya, the down portion niya is the blood clot. Kasi nga, clotted blood siya. So let's proceed with the structure and functions of the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system is a network of tissues, organs, and vessels that play a crucial role in maintaining fluid balance, immune function, and the removal of toxins and waste from the body. So yung main function niya is to transport the white blood cells to and from the lymph nodes throughout the body. So ano yung structure of the lymphatic system? The lymphatic system is composed of fluids and lymph, which is similar to plasma but is composed of 95% water. So the body's excess tissue fluid filters into the lymphatic capillaries, which join larger lymphatic vessels until they empty into either the right lymphatic duct or the thoracic duct. So the lymph moves through the vessels with the help of the skeletal muscle contractions. And because of this lymphatic system, the impurities are removed when the lymph passes through the lymph nodes. Kaya siya nagiging filter. Okay? As the lymph node passes, as you can see here, no, as the lymph passes through the lymph nodes that produce lymphocytes before it reaches the duct. Kumbaga, before it reaches the duct, naka-filter na siya. So, wala na siyang impurities. Okay? So, what are the functions of the lymphatic system? So, aside from transporting white blood cells to and from the lymph nodes, it also has other functions. We have transport the tissue fluids back into the bloodstream, removes impurities. Okay, so in removing of the impurities, the lymph nodes, which are the small bean-shaped structure which are distributed throughout the body, act as the filtering stations for the lymph. So they contain immune cells such as lymphocytes, macrophages, which trap and remove the impurities, which include the pathogens. So kasama sa impurities yung pathogens, dead cells, and foreign particles from the lymph fluid. So this helps to purify the lymph and prevent the spread of infection and disease. Kasi na nafi-filter na siya, nare-remove na yung mga impurities. And then also, other function is yung they play a crucial role in the production, maturation, and activation of lymphocytes, which is a type of white blood cell involved in the body's immune response. So, and also, no, we have the transportation of fats that are absorbed from the small intestine into the bloodstream. So this allows the nutrients to be distributed all throughout the body and utilized by cells for various physiological processes. And then lastly, we have the hemostasis. So hemostasis is the stoppage of bleeding after an injury. This is to prevent excessive bleeding. Okay? So hemostasis is very essential in preventing excessive bleeding. So, for example, no, after an injury, so as what can be seen here, no, a stoppage, the stoppage of bleeding after an injury. So, for example, wound healing, nasugat ka, okay? So, when you get a cut or injury, so definitely damage yung blood vessels mo, okay? So, hemostasis helps to stop the bleeding by forming a blood clot. So, this prevents excessive blood loss and provides a temporary barrier to protect against infection. So, habang nag-heal yung wound mo, no, as the wound heals, the blood clot gradually dissolves. Okay? Nagdi-dissolve yung blood clot, and the damaged blood vessels repair themselves, automatically repair themselves, allowing normal circulation to resume. Okay? So, kapag walang effective hemostasis, the individual would be at risk of life-threatening bleeding and complications in many everyday situations as well as during medical procedure. Okay? So, it requires the following interaction of the following. So, dapat itong apat should interact properly in order for hemostasis to be facilitated. So, we have the blood vessels, the platelets, the plasma proteins, and of course, the coagulation process. Okay? So, it has the following responses. Okay? We have the vasoconstriction. Okay? Vasoconstriction, the formation of platelet plug, and the formation of fibrin clot. Okay. So, vasoconstriction, the vessel walls are constricted after an injury, which results in reduced flow of blood in the site of injury. So, magre-reduce na yung flow of blood. Okay? And then the next one is the formation of a platelet plug. So, yung platelets will stick together on the site of the injury, which will form a plug. Mag-stick siya together para magpa-plug siya doon sa mismong injury. Okay? So, after that, nag-plug na siya doon sa mismong injury. So, there will be a formation of fibrin clot. So, the thrombin will convert fibrinogen to fibrin, which cross-links to make a stable fibrin clot. Okay. So, the last one, okay, the last response is the fibrinolysis. So, una muna, there will be vasoconstriction. Second, formation of a platelet plug, and once a platelet plug is already formed, there will be a formation of fibrin clot, and then lastly, the fibrinolysis. So, ano yung fibrinolysis? So, the process in which the fibrin is dissolved. Magdi-dissolve na si fibrin, and it has two main activities. It will reopen the intact vessels by dissolving the clots and removes hemostatic clots from the tissue as part of the healing process. Kasi kumbaga, nag-heal na yung wound. Okay? So, thank you for listening, and that will be all for our topic, circulatory and the lymphatic system.